It's been said that the way we use resources is like leaving a fire hydrant going 24 hours a day. And that recycling is like mopping up without shutting off the water. Waste prevention, or source reduction, is about turning off the hydrant. This shoreline is where Alameda County used to dump its trash. As recently as 30 years ago, cities on the edge of the bay used to just drive their garbage out of town and dump it. But with 6 million people in the Bay Area and growing all the time, our waste is threatening the natural systems that sustain us. We have come a very long way. Today, in Alameda County, people are recycling as never before. We've got curbside recycling, construction and demolition recycling, tire recycling, food and green waste recycling. But there are limits to how much can ever be recycled. This is the Altamont landfill, where much of Alameda County's refuse goes. Altamont is one of the most efficient landfills in the country, and we're doing a better and better job of keeping waste out of places like this and making good use of it. But are we the victims of our success? The truth is, the rates at which we're making waste are greater than ever, and there are all kinds of waste besides what you see here. The point today isn't so much where we're going to put our waste, but that we're wasting resources like there's no tomorrow. The best way to prevent waste is by not making it in the first place.
The landfill is a symbolic aspect of waste happening. In fact, the molecular weight of all that we throw out into the biosphere that we can't see exceeds the molecular weight of what we can see. Where does your tire tread go when you suddenly need new tires? It's dispersed into the biosphere in ways that you don't know about, but the biosphere is having to deal with it.
Much of the waste we don't see comes from manufacturing the products we consume. It takes energy to extract and transform raw materials, and more energy to transport products to the store. So the waste produced to make something as simple as this toaster oven is considerable.
If you look at the life cycle analysis of a product, whether it's an appliance or an automobile or the shirt we're wearing, 9 times out of 10, the energy embodied in the materials and the assembly of the materials into the product is the vast majority of the environmental impact of that product.
But isn't making and buying and throwing away toaster ovens and other things like cars and computers and the like what our economy is all about? Does a consumer economy have to be a wasteful economy? Take cars. As usual, the best way to reduce waste is not to make it in the first place. City Car Share makes cars available to its members through their website. The cars are parked in accessible locations and are used by members as they need them.
We can't just say, okay, get rid of your car. It's the good, right thing to do. It's got to be a really convincing, economical alternative to owning your car.
Reserve a car.
Before moving to the Bay Area from the East Coast, Clark and Sarah Dreller each owned their own car.
It was just, of course we were going to bring our car. And then a couple days before we left, we realized it was going to be this huge expense, and so we said, forget it.
Now they're car share members. And their car is a phone call or a computer click and a short bus ride away.
It's a good use of resources, using them when you need it. But if you don't need the car,
Not using the resources.
Well, why keep it?
Yeah.
And so we know the cars are there when we need it, but a lot of other people can use that common resource. So fundamentally, we all win.
City Car Share is growing twice as fast as expected, with over 2,000 members 80 cars and new branches in Oakland, Berkeley, and Palo Alto. But their long-term vision for the Bay Area is truly eye-opening. 40,000 members sharing over 1,000 cars within 10 years. 40,000 members doesn't seem that far-fetched, with more and more businesses signing on, like Carey & Company, an architectural firm where Sarah works that specializes in historical restoration and adaptive reuse.
Well, I had read about it in the paper, and I was very interested in it, but just about that time I was in the process of hiring an architectural historian for the office. And she came to me and told me that she didn't have a car, but she was a charter member of CarShare. And I thought that was terrific.
It's original to the building, but it's...
Carey & Company is now a business member of City CarShare. Alice Carey encourages her employees to bike or take public transit to work. When they need a car for business, it's simply a matter of going online, selecting a vehicle, and a short walk to the garage where City CarShare maintains a pool of cars. Increased fuel efficiency standards for all vehicles would significantly reduce carbon emissions, and new technologies are emerging that promise even more dramatic reductions. This hydrogen fueling station is a prototype of what could begin to replace the corner gas station. Electricity is generated on-site from the sun using photovoltaic panels. Hydrogen is separated from water, compressed, and pumped into a vehicle. Zero-emissions vehicles like these prevent waste before it starts, and far from being a futuristic pipe dream, are the kind of solution we must look to if we expect to reduce carbon emissions to sustainable levels. Fuel cell-powered vehicles and increases in energy efficiency of as much as 100-fold figure prominently in a sustainable strategy for business called natural capitalism. Natural capital refers to the Earth's natural resources and the ecosystems that provide vital life support services to society and all living things. These services are of immense economic value, yet current business practices and public policies typically ignore their value.
Natural capitalism is a recognition that capitalism as we know and love it is not a full deck. It is missing human capital. It's missing natural capital in all the equations it uses for what is good, what is successful. Natural capitalism is playing with a full deck to make sure that we understand the role of natural capital from which all prosperity ultimately comes.
To properly value the natural capital of California's agricultural regions requires a far-reaching understanding of the interaction of farming, natural systems, and new and old markets. California rice farmers are discovering the benefits of letting nature's diversity flourish. By flooding 200,000 acres of Sacramento Valley rice fields after harvest, farmers are creating seasonal wetlands that support millions of migrating wildfowl. Their yearly visits improve soil fertility and replace wildlife habitat lost to development.
Rice as a crop brings in about 140 different species of animals, between birds and critters as a generic term. But as a result, you have all kinds of wildfowl come in. It maintains species. There's feed because you can't harvest 100% of your crop, so you have feed available. And it's a real neat microclimate of animal wildlife habitat.
Doug Priest is a modern farmer, struggling to balance ecological values with the economics of growing a crop. For much of the last century, farmers in the Sacramento Valley used the time-honored method of burning to clean off harvested fields. But air quality controls have reduced the amount rice farmers can burn by 75%. Much of the rice straw that was once burned is now plowed under, but a growing percentage is being used as a construction material and is emerging as an important alternative to wood particle board.
This is FiberTech. We're out in FiberTech's raw material area where we have about 40,000 tons of rice straw from the local area stacked.
In Colusa, in the heart of California rice country, a new company called FiberTech is manufacturing door cores out of rice straw.
And what we do is we take the rice straw from the farmers' fields and then utilize all of it in our manufacturing process and create an industrial product. So instead of the product being burned or thrown into a landfill or being disposed in a non-beneficial manner, we utilize it in an industrial process and actually can substitute for wood or for other products.
For it to be profitable for farmers to harvest their rice straw, and for companies like Fibertech to make it into usable products, there has to be a market.
Just building a company that utilizes something like rice straw is a huge challenge. In the short term, it is a very tough thing to do. But given the pressures that are on our environment, somebody is going to have to do it, and we want to be part of that wave as more and more people utilize things like this and the market becomes more aware of it.
The demand for green building materials is growing rapidly as builders and their clients seek out more sustainable construction practices. Pulte Homes, one of the biggest home builders in the country, is also finding ways to prevent waste through innovative construction techniques and a commitment to energy efficiency.
What you have to do with this framing is throw away convention, and you have to think about the home in a different manner. What we've done is we've taken the exterior building envelope and we're trying to create a cavity for all this insulation we're going to be putting in the house, but at the same time using lumber as efficiently as we can.
Pulte is working with the Alameda County Waste Management Authority to develop standards for green building. In this development, environmental responsibility is an important selling point.
One of the major components that you can see if you take a look up above is that we've actually put the insulation in the top cords of the trusses.
By super insulating, including a thermal barrier between the exterior and the attic space, energy-efficient windows, and ducting, these homes will prevent waste by saving energy.
If you take a look at the header that's over a typical framed window, this is a 6 by 10 piece of lumber. Very expensive and also from a very old tree.
By limiting their use of heavy lumber and framing walls with less wood, they're reducing their use of resources and stopping waste before it starts.
You know, there's been a lot of figures that have been thrown around relative to the efficiency of these homes and, you know, how much money a year does it save and you know, how many trees potentially do we save and that sort of thing. Again, I think you just need to look at the numbers to understand, you know, a builder like Pulte building 28,000 homes a year domestically, and the impact of just, again, saving $50 a home a year on an electrical bill, or $100 on a gas bill, or using $200 less lumber. The economies and the numbers add up so quickly, it's mind-boggling, and we're just one builder.
Another company changing the way it does things is the Alameda Newspaper Group. Every week at their packaging center in Hayward, they insert 13 million advertising supplements into the Oakland Tribune and several other local papers. Everything that comes in and goes out is on a pallet. Wooden pallets can be reused for a while and then recycled, but for a number of reasons, source reduction has proved to be the better solution.
The problem with wood pallets mainly is, in this industry today, is scavengers. Scavengers can hit you very hard on the bottom line.
In addition to problems with theft, storage, and safety, A&G wanted to maximize the reusability of their pallet stock.
We want to make sure that these pallets are in use for a long time, because the key is to reuse, not to recycle or to buy more in the future.
With the help of the Alameda County Waste Management Authority and Recycling Board, the packaging center has switched to plastic pallets using recycled content.
I can tell you a wood pallet would probably last anywhere between 1 week and 1 year, depending on how it was handled. A plastic pallet can last 1 year to 10 years.
As well as improving job safety and requiring less space for storage, the more durable plastic pallets help diminish the environmental downside of recycling.
Recycling uses a lot more energy than the average person would know about. There is a lot of transportation costs, energy costs used in recycling products, fuels, equipment, costs of manpower, where reusing it reduces a lot of those costs by handling it less.
ANG is reducing waste by taking the long view and considering the full life cycle of their pallets. Whether it's buying plastic pallets or cleaning up oil spills, it all shows up as growth when the United States Department of Commerce announces the Gross Domestic Product, or GDP. But rather than a real indication of the health of the economy, the GDP is just an indicator of spending. There is a new economic model called the GPI that uses sustainability indicators to develop a wide-ranging bill of health that distinguishes the negative impacts from the benefits of growth and regards waste as a burden on the economy.
It's so cheap to produce waste, apparently, according to the GDP. But if we actually look at the true costs, like we would look at from the GPI, the Genuine Progress Indicator we do at Redefining Progress, actually shows that waste is very expensive.
Economists at Redefining Progress in Oakland caution that for growth to be sustainable, we must recognize ecological capacity and whether our impact, or footprint, exceeds the ability of the Earth to sustain us.
So the ecological footprint measures in very simple ways just how much ecologically productive space, like pasture, cropland, or fisheries, forests, etc., how much of that is necessary to support the resources that we consume and to absorb the waste. So it's like a budgeting. Rather than using dollars, we use acres, and then we can add them up and see to what extent does our consumption fit into the limited amount of capacity that exists on this planet.
To calculate your own ecological footprint, visit the Redefining Progress website. You'll find that if all the people of the world lived like the average U.S. citizen, we'd need several more planets to sustain us. Tough laws that hold manufacturers responsible for the long-term social costs of their products are a guiding principle of environmental policy in Europe and Japan. Extended product responsibility is why globally marketed vehicles like these are designed to be easy to take apart, and why almost all of the materials used in their construction can be separated and recycled. It is manufacturers who have the greatest ability to reduce the environmental impacts of their products. Companies that are accepting this challenge see it as a significant business opportunity. By redesigning their packaging to reduce waste, they're reducing costs and providing customers with more value at less environmental impact.
When we originally went to a plastic Clorox bottle, it weighed 133 grams. Over the years, we were able to take more and more plastic out of that bottle by dialing in exactly where the plastic needed to be to provide the right stacking strength and pouring ability, and even to get it through our own manufacturing lines. Now, having taken 25% of the water out of that package, we've taken 5 more grams of plastic out of the bottle, and we expect to get even more plastic out over the next few years as we get better and better at producing that bottle.
According to Clorox, when 1 gram of plastic is engineered out of a bottle of bleach, 600,000 pounds of plastic never get made in the first place, never get transported, and will never have to be recycled. By simulating stresses put on their products during manufacture and transport, industrial designers can devise performance characteristics that keep millions of pounds of unnecessary packaging out of their products and out of the waste stream.
We actually send recorders out and record the amount of vibration and the kind of shocks or drops and big railroad crossings that they go over. And so now in about 3 to 4 hours we can simulate a shipment of 2,000 miles.
Based on testing in their laboratory, Clorox redesigned the corrugated shipping cases for bleach, removing 15% of the cardboard in each box.
Since 1990, we have taken pretty close to 40 million pounds of packaging out of our different product lines. What's a little bit harder to estimate is how much have we avoided putting in the first place. I would say at least that much again. So and that's on an annual basis. So we're saving, I would say, best estimate, we're probably saving close to 80 million pounds a year versus what we would have had to do in the old days.
Source reduction must also extend to green waste. Organic waste accounts for up to 40% of the waste stream. With green waste recycling in place, we're producing mulch and soil amendments by the ton, but we can't possibly process all of it. Wasteful landscaping and gardening practices are so much a part of the way we do things, we rarely question them.
Our urban landscapes are really a major cause of environmental degradation and depletion.
Bob Perry is a landscape architect, author, and professor emeritus at Cal Poly at Pomona.
In essence, we have a dry climate region. We put a lot of plants in our landscapes. We add a lot of amendments to the soil. And then we add water, generous amounts of water, almost year-round. And what that is doing is putting our vegetation into nonstop growing conditions. They're growing very quickly. They're becoming much too large for the spaces they're placed in. And therefore, the trimming and pruning and edging, and particularly the mowing, has to be done on such a regular basis that we're ending up with tremendous volumes of green waste.
Energy to process green waste is only a part of what's required to maintain our resource-intensive landscapes.
The amount of fossil fuels that we use in manufacturing the landscape products, ranging from irrigation pipes to growing the plants, to ultimately synthesizing fertilizers, and then the operation of equipment to build and then maintain the landscapes. We use so much fossil fuel that the energy that's used consumes more oxygen from the atmosphere than the landscapes actually provide.
What's needed are more sustainable landscapes, like this demonstration garden at the Alameda County Water District office in Fremont. Designed to emulate natural systems, consume fewer resources, and create less waste.
In a sustainable garden like this, we look at the issue of green waste. One of the things that I point to very quickly is the capacity for the plants to absorb a lot of the leaf litter.
Sustainable landscaping uses plants appropriate to the climate, allowing them to take their natural forms and live their natural cycles, returning nutrients to the soil through mulching and composting. Del Conte's Landscaping in Fremont is one of many contractors in Alameda County practicing grass cycling.
Prior to the advent of the modern approach to grass cycling, grass clippings were typically hauled off, and a lot of that comes from a customer's preference of wanting a completely manicured lawn. I refer to it as the American Dream lawn, which is that it has no weeds, it's got no debris on it, it never grows, or it appears that it never grows because it's mowed so frequently and it's maintained with such a manicured approach.
In grass cycling, instead of treating cut grass as waste, it's chopped into small clippings and returned to the lawn as nutrients and organic materials.
It's reduced nutrient requirements for the turf because you're only cutting off 1/3 to 1/4 of the grass blade, and by doing that, you're basically recycling it back into the turf.
Grass cycling is changing the way we think about lawns, reducing the resources they require and the waste they generate. At Camp Arroyo in Livermore, a partnership including the East Bay Regional Park District, the Taylor Family Foundation, and the Alameda County Waste Management Authority has built a remarkable environmental education camp for children. The landscaping, like the buildings, has been designed to reduce waste, save resources, and eliminate toxicity.
What happens in most landscapes is there's a great emphasis on plants that require fertilization, heavy fertilization, to get their bloom. Herbicides have to be applied to keep down weeds, competing weeds, because the plants are not really supposed to be there. So what wants to be there wants to take over. And, of course, there's the trimming and then the replanting. So that whole process is extremely wasteful. We try to avoid that here.
Extensive mulching, proper spacing of plants, native species, and an aesthetic that welcomes rather than resists the natural cycles of our climate are all part of a landscape design that functions without waste.
You're learning how the water works, how the ground works, how the soil holds moisture, how things grow. It's part of the lesson we're trying to teach here.
Target! Checking the box! Ouchie!
These kids are conscientious recyclers. and concerned for the environment. But they are a generation of consumers that has been targeted by the most sophisticated marketing techniques virtually since they were born. Most Americans can identify over 1,000 corporate logos.
Kobe Bryant.
No wonder. Every day we're exposed to literally thousands of advertisements.
NBC.
Waste reduction isn't something you can buy. Instead, we need to reconsider what and how we consume. We used to shop for what we needed. Now, we also shop for fun, to impress, to say who we are, and of course, to replace old toaster ovens. Source reduction means being more aware of the impacts of our choices, sometimes choosing to consume less, and by consuming less, creating less waste. We all need to take a long, hard look at the part we play in either saving or wasting resources. Every day, at home and at work, the individual actions of millions of people are preventing waste. Reducing the packaging that comes into our homes and workplaces, reusing whenever possible, conserving paper, electricity, and water, composting and grass cycling. We've come a long way from dumping our garbage in the bay, but our model for growth has proved dangerously short-sighted. Our society can only benefit by defining progress to include the health of the threatened ecosystems that sustain our lives. By preventing waste before it starts and seeking new ways to reduce the waste we make, we still have the opportunity to meet this challenge. The alternative is to turn our backs on a sustainable future. Thank you.